So yeah, I mean, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's the football players." I'm like, "There's no bench press contests in buds.
Right.
You know, all that weight you have to pull up.
Okay.
You know, for pull-ups, you got to
Yeah.
push up. For push-ups, you got to run. It's hard. So there were definitely guys, some of the guys that I thought would make it that didn't. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's about you. You know, it's about how bad you want it.
Yeah. Welcome to the Badass Dad Podcast. KDH here on the microphone once again in the Iron Yeti studios. And very excited about today. Get to interview, I don't know, new friend. Can I call you friend now? I don't know. Almost.
Well, you haven't bought me a beer yet.
Haven't bought you a beer yet, so coming up. But Phillip Koontz, former Navy SEAL. And, I hesitate to actually introduce you that way because your life is so much more than just being a Navy SEAL. But, it's kind of a jumping off point. And, it's a point maybe to catch people's attention. It's clickbait. Maybe that is the clickbait for this audio.
There it is.
Yeah.
I joke around with my wife. Because I'm a public speaker, and I'm like,
Right.
really, honey? I'm just a carrot that they dangle in front of people's faces to show up, to hear me. So
Yeah. Well, man, so excited. I mean, we've got a couple of mutual friends that have been trying to connect us for a while, and so very excited about this opportunity and just even the time that we've been able to connect. And glad to see that you can actually sit up straight.
Yep.
The back's been a little issue, thanks to the Navy, I guess maybe.
Yeah. The good old static line jumping and all the jumps that we did. I mean, you're at the mercy of the wind. The old T-10 parachutes that they used back from World War II.
Oh my gosh.
And so no flaring capabilities, no steering, no nothing. So yeah, we call ourselves lawn darts. When you hit the ground, your spinal cord, just like a big accordion, just absorbs that impact. And so, yeah, I got a herniated L4, L5, and S1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, let's start off with just your story growing up, little Phillip in Ohio. Tell us about what it was like being a kid growing up there.
Yep. So I was same home right there in College Hill in Cincinnati. Go Bengals.
Need a quarterback right now, though.
Oh, I know. Jeez. Well, if you don't have an O line to protect him, then
That's true.
That's what's going to happen.
I guess the Broncos need a quarterback too, since they went down 3 this last week. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But born and raised for 18 years in the same home right there in College Hill. Very nostalgic for me. I grew up swimming. So I was like that kid that tried a bunch of different sports, and I'm the most extroverted person on the planet, maybe other than you. And so I landed in swimming, and I'm like, how did that happen? Because I'm like in my head, there's no one to talk to when you're swimming lap after lap, right? So did a bunch of sports, landed with swimming at the age of 12, and then swam competitively through college. I swam for University of Toledo, and actually hung up the suits after my sophomore year, decided to get really serious with my grades and transferred to Miami University and graduated from Miami.
Miami of Ohio.
There
you go. Not to be confused.
That's right. Which actually was a college before Florida was even a state. So
Wow.
most people think, oh, yeah, Miami Hurricanes, go here. And I'm like, yeah, no, it was Ohio.
Long before then.
Yep.
Long before then. Well, very nice. So growing up an athlete, kind of makes sense. Was there any military background for your family or anything? Or
There's not, Kevin. Yeah, no military in my family, hardly at all.
Okay.
So it was, just pretty much me. Maybe I'll start that legacy.
Okay. So you were telling me off the air, you kind of get started in the corporate world, do a short little stint, doing your office, time, and realized that was going to be short lived.
Yeah, for sure. I was. So I graduated with my marketing degree. I was recruited by News America Marketing, moved up to Wilton, Connecticut, and was there for about 8 months. And I saw the movie Office Space, and I'm like, hey, that's me. And I just realized, I'm like, not to discount, people who work in the corporate world, but it just wasn't for me. I was 21 years old, and I just knew that there was something more hardcore, I guess, maybe about me. I just needed to take my life in a different direction. So I was only there for about 8 months.
Okay.
Punched my ticket and got out.
So what did you see? I mean, so next is the military.
Well, so actually it was 2 options. One was military and one was the Westport Police.
Okay.
So I was like, well, I'll either be law enforcement or I'll join the military. Made it down to the last 2 selection. They were only hiring 1. So I made it down to the last 2. I was in front of the board, And they said, so what are you going to do if you don't get this job? And I was like, I'm just going to join the military. And I could tell on their faces that was the wrong answer, that they didn't want to hear. So, I mean, it's all in God's will, right? Yeah. So I think that the military definitely was a better choice anyways for me. So I showed up to the recruiting station. I actually went over to the Army side first. And I was like, I was a cocky college grad, 23 years old at the time. And what they're like, well, you have to do 2 years in the infantry before you can, go to the Q course, go to special forces. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend 2 years of my life, just doing grunt work kind of thing. So I went over to the Navy side, and he was like, well, you can go right into BUDS. And then he said, and we'll give you $8,000 because you have your college degree. And I'm like, done.
Show me the money. I'm in.
Right. $8,000 to a 23-year-old. That's a lot of money, So I was like, yeah, that sounds good to me. And I had a swimming background too. So, the water, all that kind of made sense.
So you felt comfortable there. Was that a misconception? Like your comfort with the water, did that give you a huge advantage? I mean, I would think, I was a swimmer competitive also, and I would think, man, yeah, I could do that. I actually did Ironman, when was it? When I did it? 2006.
Yep.
Okay. And I had a buddy that's like, hey, you do triathlons, whatever. And I said, first of all, I don't run. I was like, bike, you could always coast on a bike, no big deal. But in the water, I'll do fantastic. Little did I know, the swimming had very little to do with the entire Ironman. It was like such a small piece.
Right. Well, and there's a big difference between swimming competitively in a pool with nice, clear, warm water and jumping into an ocean where it's hard to guide. You've got waves, you've got all kinds of different things that are going on at the same time. So swimming did help me, but it gave me more of a comfortability in the water. Okay. I think that really gave me like an advantage with the other guys that were there.
Yeah.
And honestly, in BUDS, so each week we have 3 timed evolutions, and a 2-mile open ocean swim is one of those. That was like my free time in BUDS. I mean, I turned my brain off. My swimming buddy, he also swam in college, so we were similar skill level, and we just kind of turned your brain off and went to your happy place for those 2 miles.
Well, and although Coronado is in Southern California, the water there is not always the warmest,
right?
And so you got some big fins on, but still, the water can be intimidating for people, especially at night. Don't get too many open water swims. In Ohio.
Oh, right.
At night.
None.
Yeah. So all of a sudden you find yourself out there. But so BUDS pretty easy for you, or how was that?
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy. It was, that's a question that could take me 30 minutes. It was, it tested me in a lot of ways. Let me back up just a little bit because this is part of how it tested me. So I was married, when I was 20. Had a Dear John letter, and she didn't like living in Connecticut. Was really close to her family. I think she liked the idea of being married more than she liked being married. And so she moved back to Ohio, but she left me the dog, so that was cool. And so anyway, so we got divorced after 2 years. I was dating a girl that I met there. You fast forward a little while, and then we got married right after my boot camp. And so she was there with me in Coronado when I classed up, BUDS class 253. And so this was like 6 months after we were married. She was having a hard time, like kind of getting out of bed in the morning. And I'm like, what's going on? She was 28 years old. And so I had a random weekend off of training. So we went to Balboa Hospital right there on the West Coast in San Diego. And she had a lumpectomy done, and it turned out that she had stage 4 breast cancer. Wow. At the age of 28 years old. It had metastasized to her sternum, so that's how she was, having a hard time getting out up out of bed because it had metastasized to her bones and was in 26 of her lymph nodes from her waist up. And I mean, that experience in and of itself, that news, I mean, I remember it like it was just yesterday. It rocked my world. So
is that during BUDS?
So not only was I going through BUDS, which is the hardest military training, but I was going through it with a wife who was fighting for her life as well too. So I had just finished first phase. BUDS is 6 months long, divided into 3 phases. So first phase, the sole job of the instructor is to get you to quit, and they'll go to no lengths to do that. So, yeah, I just got done with first phase, and I was classing up, and that's when the brick fell on us. And so I decided then to roll back to the next class.
Okay.
So there's 3 ways that you can, take a role. One is a performance role. If you fail certain evolution 3 times or more, then you're out. A medical role. So if you hurt yourself, guys hurt themselves all the time in buds. Yep. Then you take a role. And then there's something called an admin role, which kind of like encompasses everything else. And that's where I was. So the lead cadre there, they pulled me in and said, hey, like, we feel for you. We understand, like, this is really hard. Do you want to get out? Do you want to roll? What do you want to do? And my wife, her name was Danielle. She was so supportive of me. And she's like, look, I know this is a dream of yours, and I want to be supportive through it. And actually, I'm really glad that I stayed in, because the Naval Special Warfare, not to, again, speak negatively of the big Navy, but NSW was really generous with me in allowing me to go to her treatments, or chemo treatments and radiation treatments. And so the cancer is just a matter of time. She had youth on her side. She fought it tooth and nail. She's one of my heroes. But it ended up taking her life the day before Valentine's Day, February 13th of 2008. I just got back from my second deployment, and that's when she really started going downhill quick.
Wow. So not only the physical challenge of being there, but then the emotional on top of it. And
right.
I mean, is there any thought during that time just quitting? I mean, is it like, I'll just ring the bell, I'm done?
Right. Before I even joined, I kind of drew that line in the sand, and I said, you know what? I would rather die than quit. We didn't have kids together, so it made that a little bit easier. And because she was fighting for her life and all of that, I just, not to sound cliche, but I didn't even give myself the option to quit. I think in life, if you crack that door just a little bit to temptation, you're going to walk through it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm not even going to crack the door. I'm not going to open the door. I would rather die than quit. And there were some moments where I was miserable, the most miserable I've ever been in my life up to that point. And I'm like, well, my heart's still beating, and I'm a man of faith as well too. And so for me, it was like, well, if I do die in training, then I meet Jesus. And if I don't die, I become a Navy SEAL. So it's kind of a win-win, for me. So
all right. There's a lot we can do with that, but
yeah.
All right. So you class back up.
Yep.
But she passes away.
No. So she rode that wave with me all the way until I was at SEAL Team 10 on the East Coast, and through my second deployment. So she had fought it for 4 years. So she passed away at the age of 32. So I classed up with 254 and then graduated with 254.
Okay. So, I mean, when you class back up, is it just you're now at a place where you're going, man, okay, we kind of know what's going on emotionally, physically for her. And so I'm ready to get back in. I mean, because I got to imagine that it had been tough as hell just to be able to
yeah.
Because it's all consuming also.
Right. It is. And you know what? I mean, I think something really kind of miraculous happened in my brain, Kevin. And even to today, I think I can compartmentalize like too well. But I think something really kind of occurred where I was able to compartmentalize. And I'm like, okay, while I'm here, and I wasn't perfect at this. I mean, I had days where, being a SEAL and in training, they teach you to pay attention to details.
Right.
And some days I was just off. I mean, some days I was a soup sandwich, right? It was what we say in the military. And I just was having a bad day, because I was distracted. But for the most part, I really tried my hardest to compartmentalize and be like, okay, I'm here, I'm in training, I'm doing my thing. And then when I was at home, I was fully engaged with her 100%. And trying to help her out and just be there. It'd be an emotional and a spiritual, mental support for her.
Man, that is so huge. And just your ability to be focused, to concentrate on the task at hand. And then when you're with her, I talk to a lot of guys, especially in business, and going, the conflict that they experience is they're thinking, they're working on a project in business, and then they're thinking about what they should be doing with their family.
Right.
And then when they're with their family, they're thinking about what they should be doing in business. And then they're sucking on both sides.
Yep.
But you figured out somehow, where did that come from? How are you able to channel all that energy and concentrate so well on the thing at hand? I mean, I kind of imagine when you're, out there and going through your evolutions that it's kind of hard to be distracted, but man, emotions are crazy.
Right. I mean, it was, and as a young adult still at that time, it was challenging. It was challenging. And I even look back and I'm like, I don't even know how I did it, when I look back at all that. And I mean, I think it was just by the grace of God that I was able to just take one day at a time. And I do a lot of mentoring right now with special forces candidates who want to go in on every side, Marines or Army, Navy, it doesn't matter. And I always get asked one question. The one question is like,
where are you going to quit?
Yeah.
Well, is there someone going to cause you to tap? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like, what is that one thing? What is that one piece of advice that you would give us to help us, in that moment? And I say, well, it's just one evolution at a time. Buds is full of thousands of evolutions, and it's just one evolution at a time. And so, when I'm giving my presentations, two of them, like the most sought after right now, prepared for the unknown and overcoming adversity. And I mention this in both of them. I say, I'm a really practical guy, right? And so I know that people that I'm speaking to, myself included, that we have bad days, that we go through seasons of depression. I mean, look, we're in Corona now for 8 months?
Right.
And suicide rates are up and depression rates are up, and we're the most medicated country even before Corona. I can't even imagine now,
right.
But when life seems too much, when you wake up and even just looking at the day seems too much, you just break it down, just make it to breakfast. Maybe it's a win just to get out of bed in the morning. And so what I tell guys, I'm like, just take it one evolution at a time, just make it to breakfast. And then after that, just make it to lunch. And then just make it to dinner, and then make it to mid-rats, which is 3 o'clock in the morning. Just take one meal or one evolution at a time, break your day into smaller goals so you can start to feel more accomplished. And that builds that sense of accomplishment, that sense of I'm doing something, I can do this, I'm being productive, that sort of thing.
Well, and I love that because you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, at least that one evolution.
Right.
And that applies to anything. That can apply to fitness. That can apply to relationships. If you got relationships on the outs, or just in the shitter right now, or you're just not communicating well, or whatever it may be. I've got a teenage boy right now, and so we are experiencing at times the teenage angst.
Yep.
And there's times I have told him that I would punch him in the face, if he doesn't change. So it's just getting through that one evolution with him, may be good.
Right.
Definitely a business. So I see how so many ways that you can apply that.
Yep. But I think what you said earlier, though, is so important to capture, and that is be present. Be intentional with what you're doing at that moment. If it's with your kids, put down your phone, take a mental break from the to-do list, from the project that you've got the next day or coming, and spend time with your kids and be present, because kids are smart. They know when you're distracted.
Right.
And so it's that thing, it's that give and take, it's that balance of being present, being a dad, or a husband, being involved with your family when it's family time. And then when you're at work, in the military, whatever you're doing, then it's time to put that hat on and give it 100% focus.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
Because I know I catch myself in the middle of, something. Is there something that triggers you that you go, when you kind of catch yourself going, crap, I'm not as present as I need to be? Or is there something that your wife kind of says, hey, jackwagon, come back over here. We're with the family right now. Is there some kind of trigger that brings you back? Or are you just, you're a SEAL. Come on, you're perfect. You know how to do everything. You never make a mistake. Right. Every shot's on target. What do you do when you're off target?
If my wife was right here, she'd be like, yeah, right. She'd be throwing the BS flag on that one. My kids hold me accountable.
Okay.
Just like all of our kids do, so if I'm doing something on my phone, I'm supposed to be playing Legos or whatever with them, they're like, Dad, what are you doing? So it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. Put the phone away kind of thing. So they definitely keep me on point.
Kids are probably some of the best cadre we could ever have.
Oh, yeah. And I've got 5. We have a brood at home. So right. I joke around. I have my little fire team, So I have a 14-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, 2 9-year-old boys. Wow. And then my youngest daughter's about to turn 8 here in about a week.
Man, I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Well, that's going to lead me right into one of my favorite questions I've asked guys. And so once you go back, and think about, and I want you to tell the story of when you found out that you were going to be a dad for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Man, it was amazing and terrifying all at the same time. Buds does not prepare you to be a good dad. My SEAL training, no matter what we were doing, does not prepare you to be a good dad. And of course, the joke is it doesn't come with a handbook either.
Right.
I realized a moment that sticks out in my mind is when I was holding my son. He was just a couple months old, and he had woken up in the middle of the night, and I was holding him, and trying to rock him back to sleep. And I looked down at him, and like I said before, I'm a man of faith. And so there's a part in scripture where the Lord's talking to us and says, before you're even formed in your mother's womb, I knew you.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked down at him, and I mean, it still brings tears to my eyes. I mean, I look down at him and I'm like, I love you so much. And you have no idea who I am. And that moment just, I mean, it just solidified my call to be a dad and how real it got. And it was just, I mean, it was powerful. It was really powerful. And that was my son, Zadok, who's 9 now. But it's not easy, no matter what stage they're in. Yeah. Even when they're grown and out of the house, I mean, you're still kind of a dad, right? And they're still coming to you, and they're still making dumb choices and all and all that. So it's a fun ride, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I think I've shared this a couple of times on our podcast, but we adopted my oldest. He was 4 when we adopted him. He's 13 now, so 9 years ago. And people, used to ask me questions a lot. What some things you learned, things like that. Being a dad and everything else. And I've been a Christian for a long time. I was a teenager when I became a Christian, and I remember sharing this as like I began to have a small glimpse of what it could possibly mean when it says that God is jealous for us. Because when I would see my son when he was 4 years old, and even now, I'm so jealous, for him. I'm jealous for the time to be there, to wrestle, just to, and like put down your damn phone, get away from the video game, or, stop looking at girls, or whatever, whatever he's doing. I want the attention, and I just wonder how much more intense that is if God really is that jealous for us, and how would I act differently if I actually believed that?
Right.
For myself.
Yep. That's good. I totally agree with you. I think it's got to break his heart, his father's heart every single day when he's got his children down here who want nothing to do with him. But those though that do and really mean it, really walk the walk and talk the talk and spend time with them. I mean, it's just like any other relationship. I just met you for the first time face to face today. We've talked before on the phone,
right?
But if I really want to get to know you, if we really want to be good buddies, we got to spend time together.
Yeah.
And the same thing's true with God too. Some people are like, I'm just going to say some Hail Marys and throw up some prayers every now and then,
right?
And, pray before dinner and go to church for Christmas and Easter. I call them Keisters. I'm good, right? I live a good life. I'm good, right? And it's just like he wants so much more from us and for us, more importantly. Yeah.
Well, let me take a half step backward and go back to the SEALs and stuff. Was there ever a moment that you just wanted to turn in the towel, that you're done? You're like, I'm out of this, and what kept you going? I mean, was it just that grit, just going, I'm just not going to quit, that internal fortitude, or was there something more to it?
Yeah. I had prepared myself the best I could physically, but Buds is 80% mental.
Okay.
And because everybody, every human being, every body breaks down eventually. And that's what Buds is designed to do, is to break you down physically. And that is the moment when the instructors want to see if you've got what it takes between your 2 ears to be able to really persevere through all that. And so, yeah, I mean, there are definitely times that I wanted to quit. Kind of brings me back to my first thing, but I wasn't dead. I still had a heartbeat, and I was still going. And our Buds class, we started with 223 guys and finished with 21. And so I heard that bell ring a bunch. And it just motivated me. I mean, it's every single time I heard that bell ring, it's like, okay, I made it past one more guy.
Wow.
One more dude quit, and I'm just, that much closer to it. So I just, I was insanely focused on my goal of being a SEAL, and it just took a bunch of grit and perseverance, a lot of positivity, and a lot of preparation as well too.
What were some of the misconceptions that you had going in? I'm just going to throw one out that I would think. I may look at someone who is a college swimmer or is a super stud athlete that can run and ruck forever and strong. They'll definitely make it, and they just don't have between the ears, as you said. They don't have the Valentine. They're the Tin Man. They don't have a heart. They can't get through it all.
Right?
Is there something that you kind of a misconception going in, and then coming out going, wow, that was totally different from what I thought?
Yeah, I think that
Or was it like any one that you go, man, this dude, he's going to cakewalk through this, and then
and
he
then
rang the
quits.
bell first?
Yeah, you always have guys like that you think are going to make it and then quit.
Yeah.
A lot of people, not to answer your question, kind of a little bit of the long way, the roundabout way. So ever since the Bush senior administration, they've wanted to get special forces, particularly SEALs, through the pipeline as much as possible. So they underwent a study, a sociological study, poured millions of dollars into this. It pretty much failed. I mean, they all wanted to see who has what it takes.
Okay.
You know, what are the personality traits, you know, of all these guys that make it. And I mean, even the best of the best can't really determine. It's like either have it or you don't. They were able to determine two things. One is the general area of the country that a lot of SEALs come from. And the other one was the two main sports that most guys played or participated in who made, you know, prior to buds.
Okay.
So the general area of the country is the Midwest.
Okay.
And I always thought Texas.
I thought you were going to say
Dallas,
Texas.
I know. Like one of the most patriotic states that we've got, you know, the good old boys down there, but it was the Midwest.
Okay.
And then the two sports were swimming and wrestling.
I was going to say wrestling. Wrestling's got to be in there somewhere.
Yep. And I think it's just the rigors of training, the 2-a-days, all of that, just the time that's spent, the hard work ethic, you know, that's developed in that definitely helped a lot too. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, it's the football players. I'm like, there's no bench press contests in buds. You know, all that weight you have to pull up. You know, for pull-ups, you got to push up. For push-ups, you got to run. You know, it's hard. So there were definitely guys. Some of the guys that I thought would make it that didn't. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's about you. You know, it's about how bad you want it.
Yeah. So in that, I mean, you didn't use this word, but I'm sure it's a word that you would use it quite a bit, is just having that grit. And so I want to ask you, how are you teaching your kids grit? Now, you also, I only have boys, so I know one way of thinking with them, but you also have girls. How are you teaching your kids grit?
I think in two ways. One is taking responsibility for when you mess up. You know, not blaming other people. And I know that really doesn't pertain to grit, but it kind of does. When you're able to take ownership for your faults, when you're able to say, you know what, I screwed up and I'm going to try harder, I'm going to do better, I'm going to learn from that, that develops a habit of grit. That develops that I'm not going to quit kind of mentality. Yeah. And then just having them just not quit. I mean, I can't tell you how many parents are listening right now, myself included, in you. I mean, how many times have we heard our kids say, I'm done, I want to quit, you know, and it's like, no, you know, you're not going to quit. You said you wanted to do this. I'm holding your feet to the fire. We're not going to quit. And of course, at the end of the season or whatever, they're like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't. But, you know, if it's left to a kid, they're going to quit. And that's why the attrition rate is so high in buds. The average age of a kid going through buds is like 19 to 23. I mean, they're pretty young. I was 24 when I went in, so I was
old man.
Yeah, right. You have to have an age waiver. If you're 28 years old or over, you have to actually have an age waiver. So those people who are under 28, you know, qualify automatically just from the age standpoint. So for my kids, I mean, going back, that's the main reason why guys quit is because they don't have that perspective. They're going through the worst day of their life and they're like, this sucks. This is the coldest I've ever been. You know, I'm tired of being sandy and wet and miserable and I'm done. You know, they just don't have that perspective. So for my kiddos, I want to try to develop that perspective in them, that, you know, taking ownership part when they mess up and then just not quitting and just giving it their all. So
you decide to transition out. I was one of the, and I don't remember what they call it in the SEALs. I think there's a name. I think it's different than the name I'm going to use, but I know you'll know what I'm talking about. It was one of the hardest things was to give up the Ranger panties. Was it they're called the little tight shorts that you'd wear?
Yeah. Yeah, the like the really brown, like the brown, like really short shorts.
Short shorts, yeah. So anyway, so transitioning out, was that something you said, hey, you know, I did my time, it's time for me to move on, or was there something else? Talk to us about the transitioning, because many of the guys, you know, that I've interviewed, they've gone through a season where, you know, for me, give you an example. I had wanted to be a teacher and a coach since I was 12 years old. And I had that great opportunity. And then when I was deciding to leave that, it was hard for me. It was very difficult. I mean, it hurt me deeply, you know, to consider making that change. And because it was my identity, it was the camaraderie. I had a purpose. I all those different things. And I know guys from the military and even law enforcement have shared the same thing. But how was that for you, that transitioning phase?
Yeah, I was honorably discharged in 2009. What kind of led to that? I had kids. I had 3 stepkids at the time, so I wanted being a good dad and being a Navy SEAL. Just they don't go hand in hand.
Okay.
They're like oil and water because we're gone all the time.
Right.
Of our 2-year cycles that we go through, we're gone 540 of those days. Training, deployment, that sort of thing. And so I got out for family reasons. The door was kind of open for me to get out, and I talk about that in my book a lot. But yeah, it was definitely a struggle for me to figure out who am I now. I was a contractor after that, so I did some sensitive site exploitation on Fort Bragg for the Green Beret at the John F. Kennedy School. So I joke around, it's the Navy SEALs who teach the Green Beret. I'll definitely get some flack for that one. But so I did that for a little bit for a couple of years until that contract dried up. So that kind of helped the transition. I wasn't in the military, but I was still kind of doing military-ish kind of stuff.
Right.
But even to this day, though, Kevin, I wrestle with just the internal tug of war of I want to get back in the fight. I want to live for something much bigger than myself.
Yeah.
I want to really make a difference in this world, and knowing that like I'm not probably ever going to do that again. And right now I'm supposed to be a dad and a husband, and you know I'm doing what I'm doing now, and it's going great and it's successful, but I still have that warrior mentality in me, and so I have to grieve the loss of opportunity. I'm constantly grieving the loss of opportunity because there's not a day that goes by. I mean, if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you right now having this interview. I'd be overseas.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just the way that it is. But that's not the path that I was, you know, that God had me on. Yeah. And I've always wanted to be a dad. I mean, ever since I was little, I've always wanted to be a father, and that was a huge value for me. So when I had kids, I'm like, all right, how's this going to work? Because I can't be a SEAL and be a good dad at the same time. And not to, for those people who are listening right now, who are in the military, who are the lifers, who are, you know, in for 20 plus years, and they are dads, you know, I'm not saying that they're making the wrong choice. I just wanted to make a different choice. And even them, I mean, they can see what I'm talking about because they've missed the birthdays, they've missed the graduations, they've missed some of the pivotal times in their kids' lives because they've been gone. And that just wasn't something. It's been a hard decision to make. But if I had to go back, I make the same choice. Yeah.
So you've mentioned more than a few times about your faith and everything, and so and you can kind of fill in the gaps as I explain this. But you go from active duty, and it sounds like fairly quickly into ministry, like full time, being a pastor. Like, I don't know that those things. I don't think of those two things dovetailing together.
Right.
But and I know you had the contract work in between. But like, how do you make that transition? I mean, you know, it seems like there might be, I don't know, a little of a stretch.
Yeah. People are like, wait, Navy SEAL and pastor now?
Right,
like,
right.
And I'm like, you know, like, but when you look at it like this, like God was just moving me from the physical fight to the spiritual fight. And I get spiritual warfare on a whole new level because I've been to the darkest places on the planet, like Sodar City, and I've seen evil and stared back at it, you know, face to face. And so when that door opened for me to become a community life pastor back in Cincinnati, where I was born and raised at the Vineyard Church, it was a really great fit. I think that the man upstairs also knew that I was missing some of that camaraderie, and so he opened the door for me to become a chaplain for the UC Bearcats at that time as well too. So I traveled with them a little bit, and I was on the field, and so I was kind of like their motivational / like spiritual / whatever kind of coach.
Yeah,
you know, that was with Butch Jones when he was there. So I got like the big championship ring and stuff, and it was fun. It was a lot of camaraderie. I'm like yelling and cursing, and I'm like, oh wait, I can't do that, right? But yeah, I mean, it really was an easier transition, I think, in my mind, because I was helping people wage war and really battle the unforeseen forces and spiritual forces in this world. And the fight for our souls is far more costly than than land and power and, you know, everything, all that we're, you know, fighting for right now. And so yeah, it was a good fit in that regard.
Well, that's awesome. And that's what brings you to Colorado.
Yeah. So I was there for a couple years.
Okay.
And then the economy kind of caught up with the church, and They had to save $1 million in personnel budget. And my dad was on the board of trustees. I was one of the last guys hired.
Okay.
So one of the first guys fired. Yeah. It was so hard for him to be able to make that call, but it makes sense. And so a position opened up out here in Aurora, Colorado, just right down the street, Smoky Hill Vineyard.
Yeah.
And so I joined staff there as a community life pastor, and was there for a couple of years. And then I felt the tap on my shoulder to go back to school to utilize my GI Bill. So I went to Denver Seminary, where I got my master's in leadership.
Okay.
There, and it took me 2.5 years to do that. So,
yeah.
And then the public speaking thing just kind of started. The genesis of all that kind of started while I was in school. My father's a financial advisor, has been an advisor for the last 30 years, and 6 years ago he's like, "Hey, will you come out and speak to my clients?" And I'm like, "Sure, what the hell? Might as well, right?"
Yeah.
I was so nervous, for my first presentation, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of just been that road to that was kind of marked out in front of me. So I always tell people, you say yes to Jesus, and it's never a dull life. It's always a wild ride.
Well, and you get to be a celebrity SEAL. Come on now.
Yeah. That helps a little bit.
Okay, so get us caught up. So you're there for a while, and now you've really ventured into some entrepreneurial, endeavors. So you're doing some coaching, you do speaking, you got the knife thing. We got to talk about the knife thing.
Yep.
Got to talk about the book. I mean,
Yep.
You got so many plates that are spinning that I'm excited about personally. Because I don't know, I just get excited about stuff that I didn't grow up around that. It's kind of like jujitsu. I didn't grow up, combat sports or anything else, and much later in life. But my boys enjoy all that stuff, and so talk to us about Phillip Koontz now.
Yep. So I've been a speaker for the last 6 years, a life coach for the last 4 years.
And taking in the shorts on the speaking gig, I'm sure, this year.
Yeah, well, I traveled a lot, and then COVID hit, and now I'm just doing everything virtual.
Oh, okay.
So I've cut my price, almost in half.
Yeah.
Just to help out people with their budgets and stuff, and I'm just doing everything virtually right now.
That's cool.
In my house.
Yeah.
So I'm done with my hour-long presentation and the amount of time it took me to drive to DIA, for my travel trips. So,
family loves that.
Yeah, so it's nice. It gives me more time at home as well too to spend with them. So I've been a life coach for the last 4 years, and then just on the horizon, we're about ready to pull the trigger and acquire karambit.com. So a karambit is the knife that I've used in the SEAL teams. It's the knife I've carried ever since for the last 11 years. Best knife out there. So
okay, so we'll be on YouTube. So you show them the knife.
Yep.
Pull it out and show it. We'll make sure that we get a link to this as well.
So when you pull it out, when you pull it out, it has a catch. This catch right here, it catches on your pocket. So when you pull it out the right way, it automatically comes out. It's a certain style of fighting knife. So this hails from Indonesia, like way back when. It looks like a raptor claw. So they really do a good job of using Mother Nature's killing machines, like the mountain lions or like the talons of an eagle. And they've crafted it into a knife. So a lot of people think that this is a fighting knife, which it is. You can definitely. I show up to a gunfight with a knife any day. Especially close quarter. You can do a lot more damage with this than you can, because I can take a gun from you really easy. So it's a great fighting knife, but it's also an amazing everyday carry as well too. I'm pulling this thing out to do everything: open up boxes and cut food and trim fingernails, and that's kind of gross. But I washed it after that before I cut the food. There you go. But I mean, I'm always doing stuff with this, so it's a great tool.
So hopefully people will be able to get. Well, they can go to the website now, but January looking like
don't go to the website now, but go in January.
Okay, all right. So we'll make sure you get all that.
But we have we have a big following right now, and I've got a lot of videos that we're gonna release with all of that. How to fight with it, how to pull it out, how to use it, how to operate with it, different uses, all that kind of good stuff. So I'm excited.
Well, all right. Talk to us about the book. So The Truth Behind My Trident. Is that right?
Yep.
Close? Okay.
Yep.
So I can't wait to read it. I mean, Mark, I text Mark and I say, "Hey, Mark, what I need to make sure I ask Phillip." And he was like, text me a couple of things. And he mentioned the audiobook. I'm like, shit, man, I could have got the book before. Yeah. But anyway, talk to us a little bit about that, because, we want to be able to promote that as well. And what a great time. I mean, going into the holidays, what a great gift to be able to give as well. And why should people read it?
Yeah. So my goal was, The Truth Behind My Trident is the book that I wish I would have read before I got into the Navy. Okay. So I really wrote it initially for guys, the candidates who are going into the military, But then I'm like, I realized, okay, that niche is so small that I'm going to sell like a half a book. So I wanted to make it applicable and practical to everybody. So I talk about my journey a little bit before, a little bit of my upbringing, and then my time in the teams, and then a little bit afterwards, but not most of it's about my experience in the Navy. And I really want to pull back the curtain and kind of give the general public a good view and a good idea of what an average day in the life of a Navy SEAL looks like. Because Hollywood does a good job of portraying the missions and, but it looks sexy and awesome. And people are like, oh, I want to do that.
And it's all the highlight reel.
That's right. That's right. So I sat down one day and I'm like, okay, I want to figure out how much time is actually spent boots on the ground conducting our missions as opposed to, everything else that we do leading up to that.
Yeah.
3%. 3% of our time spent as Navy SEALs are going on our missions. We have 4 main mission sets that we can go on, but only 3% of our time is actually boots on the ground. The other 97% of the time is what I wanted to capture in my book.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to read it.
Well, it's a short read too, which is great. I wanted to keep it short on purpose.
Because people would actually read it.
Right. I mean, who has time nowadays to pick up a book that's over 200 pages? It's like 130 pages. It's to the point. Most authors, they say what they're going to in the first half of the book, and then they like repeat themselves in the second half of the book.
Yep.
So for me, it's a little bit of a autobiography, but just a good glimpse of really like what you're signing up for when you become a SEAL. So
wow. Well, Phillip Koontz, I tell you what.
And it's available on Amazon.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, available on Amazon. Okay. It's on Kindle. It's audio. You can get a hard copy as well too. Hire me to come out and speak, and I'll sign them and take pictures and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, give us a website.
Yeah, it's my website.
Okay.
My website's Phil Koontz, Phil, Phil Koontz, KOONTZ.com.
Okay. And we'll have that in the show notes as well. What about on the interwebs? Where else can we find you? Social media. Where can we find you? Are you on there?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. I hate social media a lot like you do, so I hire somebody to help me with all that. Okay. I know like with Karambit and everything, we're going to be on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, all of it. So,
well, I know you do a lot of political stuff on Twitter as well. So, right?
Yeah, I love politics. That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
Phil Koontz.
All right. I think that is it. I think I did look for you once. The one time I was on something or another. All right. So let me just say this. So at Badass Dads, our tagline is forging, a band of brothers committed to forging stronger fathers. And there's no doubt that you have really made a commitment in your life to be a protector, provider, and really to do an amazing job, not only protecting our country and our freedom, which I greatly appreciate that, but you are a mighty man of valor. And I love the example that you're setting. And I know, you've gone through hurts, you've had frustrations, you've had setbacks, but you've just refused to give up. And that grit and that tenacity that you demonstrated going through BUDS and your time in active duty are a small comparison to the impact that you're making out in the world and that you will make, even for eternity.
Yep.
I don't mind saying that.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on. Is there any last things that you want to share before we wrap up today?
When I speak to youth, a lot of times I'll speak to like Boy Scouts or schools or, churches, that sort of thing. One of the main things that I try to just hammer home for our youth is this piece on identity. And I mean, I could go for an hour just talking about identity, but just it in a nutshell, the 50,000-foot view, I struggled with my identity growing up. And I was in the SEAL teams, and here I am, the band of brothers, we're supposed to have each other's back, but, having a moral compass, I didn't go to the strip clubs and didn't tell the dirty jokes and, get drunk all the time. And so that like alienated me because I was different. And so I had to try to walk this fine line of fitting in while also maintaining my moral integrity. Mm. And I didn't do a very good job of that because I wanted the guys to like me. So I found myself at times compromising my integrity, compromising who I knew that I really was in order to try to fit in. And so if I could say anything, if anybody is, youth-wise listening to this, I would say, if you haven't heard anything that I've said, put down the electronics real quick. It's be confident in who you are. And really take time to cultivate that identity and be true to yourself, and don't worry about who you're going to offend. Don't worry about if you're going to not fit in or not, or if you're going to get made fun of, because everybody gets made fun of, right? I mean, there's not a person on this planet that doesn't get made fun of.
Yep.
And so be true to who you are, because the moment that you stop that, the moment that you start to drift towards the group and compromise who you are, you're always going to regret it. And it's always going to lead to poor choices. And that was a lot of my journey. And luckily now, I've had to like really learn that lesson the hard way. But I was in my late 20s, early 30s until I really realized, I'm like, okay, this is who I am, and I'm not gonna wean on this, either way. So,
wow, that is gold right there, no doubt about it. And I would even say, I know you've used that in directing more at youth, but I think that goes for all the dads as well that are out there that, they're struggling with their identity.
Yeah.
They're trying to find out, who am I? Who am I if I change careers? I used to be the, SWAT medic in Aurora, and now I'm doing construction. I'm thinking about a buddy of mine, Rich.
Yep.
And man, our commitment in understanding our commitment to who we are and whose we are is incredibly important. And man, just I can't wait. Can I get you back on sometime?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we live in such a culture and a society right now, where a lot of men, I mean, you bring up a good point. It's not just for youth, but I mean, a lot of guys are like, do I have what it takes? They're still asking themselves that question. Who am I? Am I really a man? Do I really have what it takes? That sort of thing.
Yep.
And that's something that is an uphill battle in today's postmodern culture that we're finding ourselves living in right now. So.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Phillip Koontz. Very excited. Hey, guys, this is the holidays are here and they're upon us. And, I hope you take the time just to squeeze your kids a little bit tighter, to remember what's going on during this season, and thank those men and women in uniform that wear many different uniforms for us, that protect our freedoms and our rights and give us the opportunity to have the freedom that we have right now. We are grateful for all of you. And let's have a great holiday season and go kick it into 2021. Have a badass day, be a badass dad, and we are out. Hey guys, just want to thank you so much for listening to the Badass Dad podcast. We do need your help though. A couple different things that we can use. We want to grow our podcast and our message out there. We are getting so much great feedback from you guys, but we need your help. So we want to make it into the top 10. So if you could please, share. I guess sharing the podcast is a huge benefit. Also, if you'll comment. So if you'll leave us a comment, like leave us a review, and some 5 stars would be great. The other thing is, if you have a subject you'd love us to cover, maybe there's something you like the subject shows or an interview, or if there's someone you want us to interview, if you could communicate with us, you can hit me up at kdh@badad.org. So that's kdh@badad.org, or you can go to our Instagram, which is Badass Dads Podcast, and leave us a direct message there. And I'd love to interview people, love to hit the subjects you guys want to hear more about. Thank you so much for helping us grow.